All right, everyone. In the wake of the impeachment proceedings falling apart for the Democrats, there are more and more articles coming from the legacy media over the last 48 hours or so that are saying, what if Trump actually wins in 2020? Could he actually be reelected? Now, link in the description, archived, of course. This is a New York Times article. By the way, the New York Slimes paywalls everything now. Archive the article, run it through archive.today, and you can read it without participating in their bullshit paywall. And then you can also spread the link without giving them ad revenue or any new subscriptions. I think this is a good thing because if they're going to lie to people, which they tend to on a daily basis, they shouldn't be getting money from it. Now, these people are at the forefront of trying to crack down on fake news. There are YouTubers that clickbait and they get ad money. Why is Google giving them money for clickbait? Well, why are you getting it? What, because you wear suits instead of, sitting there with a webcam, you get the money and other people can't? Well, that's not the way that the world works anymore, thankfully. Now, you can get your lies in a t-shirt. You don't have to watch somebody who wears a Rolex anymore to do that with their fucking cat teeth and their hair plugs. But, it's funny, kind of stretching these metaphors out a little bit thin at that point. With the New York Times. It's funny to read this article, and it's obvious that the worry has set in because the election season's persisting, and through here they're like, Trump is setting up for maybe winning. Will his strokes of luck continue? They're trying to chalk it up to two things, luck and a good economy, while at the same time bashing him in the same article. So they're like, he's riding the economic whirlwind, but the economy's not actually going that well. Income disparity is growing, and metrics that nobody cares about unless they're already a Democrat and already not going to vote for him. They point out correctly that among independents, his approval has risen considerably as the impeachment farce has fallen apart. I would say there are other reasons. It's not just the economy, and it's not just the failed impeachment attempt. These things matter. His approval in the aggregate now is at 45 again. Again, it's and rising. It could hit 46. Well, he's got plenty of time to make up that last 1% that they claim that he needs to be reelected. If we look at the proper metrics, though, Trump has been, by and large, decent on foreign policy. Not perfect, but decent. Better in the first couple years than in the last. However, improving, it seems. Economically, he's been an A-plus president. It doesn't matter. They're like talking about, job growth isn't quite as high as it was at some random quarter from 2017. Who cares, number one? Or wages haven't grown so much. Well, that depends on what version of wages you're looking at. If you're looking at solidly middle-class wages, they've actually grown quite a lot. Then that's a group that the Republicans desperately needed to wine and dine, because it's the group that got the most promises from Trump economically, largely fulfilled. Yeah, there are some places in Trump country that aren't doing well economically, just like there are blue states and blue regions within states that aren't doing so well. By and large, though, most of them have improved. I've seen it myself. I like to use myself as an example, as someone who, not that many years ago was impoverished. Whose community in the wake of the Great Recession was gutted. I remember Rutland from, the late 2000s. Oh my God, you wouldn't believe it. Unrecognizable with, something like 1 in every 5 houses was foreclosed on at the time. It was a monstrosity. It was a nightmare. Rutland looked like a literal ghost town, and over the course of half a decade, things got pretty shabby there. Rutland had a lot of problems. Now it's a functioning community again, with the exception of our dead mall, which is like, who cares who goes to the mall anymore anyway. Yeah, they've got a kid play space in there for the bored parents to bring their kids for an hour for no reason. Why would you pay money for that when there's playgrounds in the city? I don't understand, but I don't know, somebody... I guess it's more for people who work in the mall, so, whatever. Maybe they get a discount. Instead of 50 cents, it's 25. Our mall's dysfunctional, just put it that way. But Rutland is recovered. It's small town America. It's not the capital of Vermont. It's not as much a tourist enclave as Montpelier or Burlington or the Woodstock-Quechee sort of area. So take that as you will. It's an anecdote, I understand, but it's an area that recovered. Trump, by and large, has done a good job. All of this rambling about him supposedly being hateful, okay, he can say whatever he wants to say. If you interpret it as hateful, how does that have anything to do with the economy? How does that have anything to do with anything? Focus on the actual on-the-ground effects in your life. You are not directly involved with Trump's tweets. You can choose to go on Twitter and be outraged by them, but you're making that choice because you're a dumbass. If you're outraged by the sort of things that he says on Twitter, my advice would be not to follow his Twitter account. You should follow something different. You should go look at something that won't trigger you. The same is true, by the way, when people on the right, they get all flustered about what Hillary Clinton said. Okay, well, don't pay any attention to her. She's not in office. She's irrelevant. It's the easiest solution. But Trump, on the ground for the average person, wages are up. Unemployment is down at historic lows in some markers and in some areas of the country, at extreme lows. Labor force participation has begun to tick back up. Trump will probably be reelected just on the economy. The lack of approval right now, because again, the impeachment farce was hanging over his head like a cloud, well, you could see those go up considerably. We don't have any new polling since after impeachment. We got to wait at least a week before we see the effect in the polls. There's a lag in polling as it concerns any major change. What happens is that usually these polls are conducted over a series of several days, over a week, as opposed to a single day. Because what happens if you do that is that your sample size is inevitably more skewed. You have to do it over the course of the whole week, including, I think, the weekend in many cases. So we'll get, in about a week, some polling. My speculation is Trump's approval will be higher. It'll probably be close to its peaks. His disapproval, though, that number actually dropping has dropped just as considerably, and that's even more of an important metric. What this shows is there are 3-4% of voters guaranteed, and probably more than that, independents who have jumped back aboard or at the very least are tolerably supportive of Trump at this point, who didn't support him before. Well, there has to be a stimulus. If you dislike somebody today and then weeks later you approve of them or you're more ambivalent, there has to be a reason for that. It's not all impeachment. Part of this is a slow, long-term organic growth in support because of the jobs market, because of the economy. Part of it's due to diplomacy, specifically trade deals. It was funny to hear Bernie Sanders the other day parroting, triumphantly about all the trade deals that he opposed because of corporations. And it was funny because a lot of those I would agree with him on. NAFTA comes to mind, the TPP certainly, that's a smack at Hillary Clinton, by the way. She supported it with glowing praise. She edited her own fucking autobiography to change that passage when she decided to run. It's the funniest thing ever. People forget that. But then, at the end, he also mentions the USMCA. So you voted against the overhaul of a trade deal you didn't like, a populistic overhaul that primarily helps the American working class. I don't know how great an idea that is to tweet out. You probably should have left that one off of there. Sort of like Bernie Sanders saying, well, I was against I'm against all these wars, including the justified one. So a strike performed in self-defense falls to him, I guess, in the same category as deciding to kill 500,000 people halfway across the world for no reason. It's interesting how Sanders is an all-or-nothing sort of person when it comes to these things. No, Donald Trump, I would speculate, has a great chance of being reelected. Impeachment's been a farce. Mitt Romney jumping ship, if anything, helps Trump because he's the greasiest, least liked person I can think of in Congress. How the hell did the dude even get elected? Should have done a trade. The Republicans should have told the Democrats, we don't really want Romney to be in the Senate, so we're going to vote against him, but you choose a Democrat and keep them out of office too. Trade him Joe Manchin or something. I know he's more beloved by some of the Republicans, but just do a trade. Get Romney back out of politics and back into whatever the hell he was doing there for a while. Where he deserves to be. We got to put him in his natural habitat, the corporate boardroom. His natural habitat is putting on the suit and foreclosing on people right before Christmas Day. Little Timmy's birthday's tomorrow. You're overdue on your rent. That's what Mitt Romney reminds me of. With enemies like that, Trump barely needs friends. When Mitt Romney is opposed to you, you tend to be a pretty good person. Mitt Romney's an asshole. That's about all. Peace out.